Welcome to this episode of our program Arab Affairs. As usual, we will be discussing and tackling an Arab important file. Today we'll be speaking about the Libyan development in light of a three-day meeting that took place here in Egypt between Libyan delegates, or a delegation, a high-ranking delegation, in a bid to hammer out a political solution to the Libyan crisis. In their final communique here, after meeting high-ranking officials from Egypt, the southern Libyan delegation praised President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi for his efforts to achieve Libyan unity, also praised the continuous Egyptian efforts to host all Libyan sides in Egypt, bridging the gaps between being aligned with any side. We'll be speaking about the Libyan development. We'll be speaking about the developments on the grounds, this particular meeting, the Egyptian effort, and more in our episode. Before we start with our discussion, let's first have a quick look on the Arab news that took place during this week, and we'll come back for more discussion.
The latest developments in the Syrian crisis on Thursday in Cairo, with Syria's Tomorrow movement head Ahmed Jarba. According to the Egyptian Foreign Ministry, the meeting was aimed at discussing the latest development of the Syrian crisis and the ways to reach for political settlement in accordance to the Security Council Resolution number 2254. During the meeting, Shukri asserted Egypt's full support to the efforts aiming to political resettlement to the Syrian crisis, that is, to restore security and stability in Syria. Syrian air defenses on Friday intercepted missiles fired by Israel on the western province of Hama, and the Syrian television said that footage purporting to show air defenses responding to the Israeli attack. Israeli warplanes were heard flying over neighboring Lebanon shortly before the strikes. The British-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights also reported strikes on Masyaf, according to Israel, that was likely responsible. American Secretary of State Mike Pompeo voiced regret on Tuesday over a stalemate in maritime border talks between Israel and Lebanon and offered Washington's mediation. Pompeo said the United States remains ready to mediate constructive discussions and urges both sides to negotiate based on the respective maritime claims both have previously deposited at the United Nations. The latest session of talks between Israel and Lebanon was put off after Israel accused its neighbor of inconsistency. The two sides technically at war opened negotiations in October after quiet American diplomacy. Both seek to clear the way for offshore oil and gas exploration. The United Nations Security Council agreed to end the UN and African Union's long-running peacekeeping mission in Darfur when its mandate ceases on December 31st. The Council on Tuesday adopted Resolution 2559 that closes UNAMID and hands over responsibility for maintaining peace and security in the ravaged region to Sudan's transitional government. The termination of the mission, deployed since 2007 and which had 16,000 peacekeepers at its peak, was requested by Sudan's government and recommended by the African Union and the United Nations. Crowds of Darfuris, however, had protested against the closure outside the mission's headquarters in the sprawling camp of Kalma in Niala, capital of South Darfur state, earlier this month. The United Nations estimates fighting in the region killed 300,000 people and displaced 2.5 million others. Pope Francis promised in his Christmas message on Thursday to visit Lebanon and South Sudan as soon as he could. The Pope traditionally mentions countries in his Christmas Day message, but he signaled out those two nations with Christmas Eve messages because of difficulties each has faced this year. Victims are still awaiting the result of an investigation into a blast that ruined a swath of the capital of Beirut. Francis expressed his affection for the beloved people of Lebanon, whom he hoped to visit as soon as possible. He said that he hoped the country would stand apart from conflicts and regional tensions. Dozens of Beit Lahem residents and a small entourage of religious officials attended Christmas midnight mass early on Friday. It was subdued by Christmas Eve as the global coronavirus pandemic and a strict local lockdown put a damper on the normally joyous celebrations in the traditional birthplace of Jesus. The Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem led the mass. Thousands of foreign pilgrims usually flock to Bethlehem for Christmas celebrations, but the closure of Israel's international airport to foreign visitors due to coronavirus restrictions kept them away. Most celebrations were cancelled due to virus measures, and the Palestinian Authority last week banned intercity travel in the areas it administrates in the Israeli-occupied West Bank.
Right, welcome back. And as we said at the very beginning, we'll be speaking about the visit of a high-ranking Libyan representatives of the southern tribes and their meeting with the committee concerned with the Libyan file. I guess we have with us over the phone Ambassador Hussein Haridi, former Assistant Foreign Minister, to highlight the issue. Good afternoon to you, Ambassador Haridi.
Good afternoon, madam.
Good afternoon to you. And if I may ask you here about this visit, and with about 75 representatives of the southern tribes and this very particular area, and their meeting with the committee that is concerned with the Libyan file. And why this very particular meeting? Why the importance of the southern part of Libya at this very particular time, and how do you read this meeting?
Well, this meeting comes in the context of the talks that the Egyptian government has inaugurated a while ago with various political forces within Libya, including the Libyan parliament in the east and the National Accord government in Tripoli. And of course, the southern part of Libya is important from an Egyptian point of view. And the meeting that took place recently in Cairo comes in this framework. We remember earlier this summer, the president met with representatives of various Libyan tribes, not only from the south, but from all over Libya. So this meeting, this latest meeting, comes in the context of the interest and the stakes that Egypt have in the stability, security of Libya in accordance to the Berlin declaration last January, and the Egyptian support for UN-led efforts to achieve a political settlement and a democratic transition in Libya.
We're speaking about Libyan neighbor. We're speaking about the Western strategic national security of Egypt. And we're speaking about brothers who have been in a chaotic scene, and we're speaking about different other Libyan delegations who came to Egypt and who made important meetings on the Egyptian soil. How do you view those recent meetings that took place here in Egypt, and we'll get back to the final communique that issued out of this meeting?
As I understand, the Egyptian position is that we are for the territorial integrity, independence, and sovereignty of Libya as one country, one entity. And that's my understanding of the Egyptian position. Whether we receive tribe representatives from the east, from the west, from the south, that should not be taken as an Egyptian support for these particular tribes. We have last September, just to give you an example, last September on the Red Sea, we hosted a UN meeting for what's known as the Military Committee 5+5, And so I guess the meetings that take place between the Egyptian government and various representatives of Libyan tribes comes in the framework of our concern for the security of Libya, and we don't show any particular support. That's my understanding for any Libyan political party. Our main interest is the success of the UN-led efforts to achieve the democratic transition in Libya.
Here in their final communique, right after the meeting with the this committee, with the Egyptian committee assigned and for the Libyan file, the Libyan delegation stressed the unity of the Libyan territories and rejected foreign interference and their adherence to political path. We are speaking here about a ceasefire that was put by all parties on the consensus of everybody, and we're speaking about a political path that was agreed upon before. How far do we see any progress at this political path that was drawn and found consensus from all the Libyan parties?
Well, the permanent ceasefire agreement is still in force, and this is a very good sign. This is a positive sign that the two sides, what's called the Libyan National Army on the one hand, and the forces of the National Accord Government, the commanders and the leaders of the National Accord Government see this agreement as a path towards a political settlement. The meetings led by the UN Special Representative, Ms. Stephanie Williams, are taking place. The recent one where it took place in Tunisia under the heading of the political dialogue, the Libyan political dialogue, and I guess the two parties, the two Libyan parties, the main parties to the Libyan conflict, have agreed, whether in Morocco, whether in Egypt, whether in Geneva, on what you have termed the political path forward. And Egypt supports, as a matter of fact, this political path forward. So we are hopeful that from here to December 24th next, the date agreed upon among the Libyans to hold presidential and general elections in Libya, to cap the year-long political process. We hope that this would take place next December on December 24th, 2021. So, and Egypt is fully supportive of this political path and this political roadmap that has agreed upon.
We're speaking about difficulties that are faced in areas in Libya. The southern area was one of those parts that need really much efforts in order to find its territorial integrity with other parts of Libya. How do you view the difficulties that are facing the south? What do the southern Libya need, and what are the threatening issue for those people in this area?
Well, the southern part of Libya is important in as much as it holds the main oil wealth of Libya. So whoever controls the south controls the future prosperity and stability and territorial integrity of Libya. the southern Libya is open to the Sahel countries and sub-Saharan Africa. And in this part of Africa, in this part of the world, we have seen some terrorist groups operating. So the main concern, not only of Egypt, but of the international community, is that the terrorist groups operating in this part of Africa would operate also in southern Libya, and from southern Libya would threaten the security of Egypt and the security of the Mediterranean countries and the European Union. So this is the importance of the South. But having said that, I don't think that many people, whether in Libya or outside of Libya, do clamor for the separation of the South. The international community, Security Council Resolution 2510, that was adopted last February, they all stress the territorial integrity of Libya.
In their final communique also, the communique, or what they agreed on, that an Egyptian consulate will be open in southern Libya to facilitate services for the citizens of both countries, meaning people or our citizens who reside there and work there, and also the southern Libyans. How important is that step? How important is it, the possibility of kicking off or starting air flights between the Sabha airport or the airport in the southern Libya and the Egyptian airport?
Well, such a decision should be taken by the competent Libyan authorities. Personally speaking, I can't see any airlines operating from certain parts of Libya, whether in the south or any other part of Libya, without the official approval of the competent authorities. So hopefully, of course, hopefully the agreements that were agreed, that were adopted among the Libyan factions include, of course, not only air travel, the resumption of air travel, but to open land routes between Sirte and the western part of Libya. So hopefully in the near future, once the security is established to a great extent, hopefully we will see the roads open between the eastern part and the western part of Libya, and air routes also operating, whether from the south, from the east, from the west, with other international destinations and Arab destinations, including Egypt.
Right. Ambassador Hussein Hariri, former Citizen Foreign Minister, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you so much. And we continue on with our episode, and we'll have this report before we continue our discussion.
Egypt hosted a three-day talks between Libyan delegates, which had started on Tuesday in a bid to hammer out a political solution to the crisis in the neighboring country. In the final communique, the southern Libyan delegation praised President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi for his efforts to achieve Libya's unity. They also praised the continuous Egyptian efforts to hold all Libyan sides in Egypt, bridging the gaps without being aligned with any side. The Libyan delegation also stressed the unity of Libyan terrorists and also rejected any foreign interference in Libya, stressing their adherence to political path to solve the Libyan crisis. They also showed full support to a joint military panel to implement the agreement's item of the ceasefire, with the necessity of building national security institutions and closing ranks to combat extremist militias. The Libyan delegation also praised the Egyptian commitment to launch Libyan development path in all fields. The communiqué added that an Egyptian consulate will be open in southern Libya to facilitate services for the citizens of two countries, with discussing the possibility to kick off air flights between Sabha Airport and Egyptian airports. Finally, it announced forming a joint friendship committee to coordinate and work on implementing what has been agreed on. On the sidelines of the talks, the delegates met with the head of the Egyptian National Committee, who conveyed President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi's greetings and keenness to achieve unity in Libya through a peaceful settlement without any foreign interference in the country's internal affairs. President el-Sisi has expressed Cairo's support to Libya's territorial integrity, sovereignty, peace and security, as well as his rejection to any foreign interference in his internal affairs. The head of the committee also reiterated Egypt's full support to Libyan legitimate aspirations, adding that Cairo continues its efforts to achieve peace and stability there. For their part, the Libyan delegates expressed appreciation to the Egyptian leadership for the effort exerted to achieve peace and stability in their country, calling on Egypt to continue its pursuit to preserve Libyan unity and integrity. During the meetings, the delegations, comprised of more than 75 members, discussed requests of the Libyan South in order to boost political settlement.
Right, welcome back, and continuing on with discussing the Libyan developments in light of the southern delegation, Libyan southern delegation visit to Egypt. And we have with us over the phone Engineer Hassan Shaaban, political analyst. Engineer Shaaban, good afternoon to you, sir.
To you.
Hello?
Yes, I'm with you. Good
Yes.
afternoon to you, Mona.
Right. Engineer Shaaban, we're speaking to you because we are so aware that you are well acquainted with the circumstances and the developments that are occurring in Libya, or rather, you are aware with the atmosphere in Libya. So why the southern tribes, why now, and the importance of such an encounter here in Cairo?
You know that we are on the verge of a political settlement in Libya. In spite of the fact that we might have some foreign troops like the Turkish troops, which will be imminent to leave Libya, whether they like it or not, because the Libyans are insisting to respect sovereignty. So I think the whole thing is working in two parallel lines: political settlement and a review for economical and social development again in Libya, because Libya, before the events that took place in the last 10 years, had a very ambitious program to develop Libya in all aspects. And I think once the political settlement will be accomplished, I think they will resume the development plans that they used to have earlier.
Yes. But throughout the past months, we have seen a number of meetings taking place with a number of representatives of different tribes, sometimes from the north, sometimes from the east and the west, and this time from the south. How do you view those meetings? What is the situation in the south? Why we have or we have to have all those meetings between all those tribes from different parts in Libya?
You see, Libya is divided, tribe-wise. I mean, I'm not talking about physical division, but Libya, the west, the east, and the south. The group of people who are visiting Egypt today They represent the south, and the capital of the south is Sabha. You know, Sabha is the main city in the south, and definitely it is a very important area. You know, for us geographically, it is the door to Upper Egypt, you see, and we need to secure stability and safety in this particular area, because at one time, close to the borders between Libya and Chad was a huge number of personnel mobilized from ISIS. And everybody is watching that. It's very important for us to have a very close watch and assist our brothers in Libya in the south. So the south is very important to us, as well as the east. You know, maybe the west side or the western region of Libya might have a little bit of a political challenge between the different fractions in the political arena in Libya, but the south and the east area of Libya is very important to us, because this actually is right next to us. We share the same borders.
Yes. If we speak here about Libyan, and as you said respectively, that it is divided into different, or geographically it is divided into different sectors. Are we speaking about different demands requested by each side or each sector, and do the challenges differ? But we'll get back to you. Just stay with us, Engineer Shaban. We'll go to the Adhan and we'll come back right after the Adhan with you.
Okay.
Right, welcome back. And Engineer Shaban, are you with us? Hello? 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 Right, so we're speaking here about this particular meeting, and in their final communique, the Southern Libyan delegation praised President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi for his efforts to achieve Libya's unity. Egypt has been working on the Libyan sovereignty, territorial integrity, and for its peace and security since a while. They also praised the continuous Egyptian efforts to host all Libyan sides in Egypt, bridging the gaps without being aligned with any side. The Libyan delegation also stressed the unity of the Libyan territories and also rejected any foreign interference in Libya, stressing their adherence to political path to solve the Libyan crisis. And they also showed full support to joint military panel to implement the agreement's items of ceasefire, with the necessity of building national security institutions and closing ranks to combat extremist militias. Also, the Libyan delegation also praised the Egyptian commitment to launch Libyan development path in all fields. The communique added that an Egyptian consulate will be open in southern Libya to facilitate services for the citizens of both countries. And finally, they announced the forming of a joint friendship committee to coordinate and work on implementing what has been agreed on. That was the meeting of this delegation from the south. This was not the first delegation to come to Egypt and meet with the high-ranking Egyptian officials or the Egyptian committee which is concerned with the Libyan file. The 1st of November also, Egypt has witnessed another important meeting with some of the other tribes who had already been working on with the Egyptian delegation on finding political settlements and consensus over the Libyan political path. I guess we'll have to be waiting for the upcoming weeks to see the developments of this file, the developments of the political path which has been put and agreed by all parts, and we will have to wait until the elections of the Libyan political sides take place in order to strengthen their institutions and to find an end to the crisis which has been occurring in Libya since a long time. Remain to be seen what will be happening in this upcoming stage. All our hearts and hopes are looking there, and we will be waiting to see together these developments in this upcoming stage, and we'll be also discussing and updating those developments. Many thanks for watching.